Okay, so our first speaker today is Remy Juri. He'll talk about disintegration in planar vector fields.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks a lot for the organizers to invite me here. I'm very happy to be here. So I will first start by describing the question I'm interested in, and then a partial answer to that question. So, okay, model theory has provided lots of very interesting tools to study algebraic relations between solutions of a differential equation. So, to describe all the algebraic relations between solutions of a differential equation, of an algebraic differential equation. So a successful strategy has been the following. Successful strategy has been the following. So first, to establish a disintegration property, okay, or the thing that they are geometrically trivial. So namely that the algebraic relations between solutions of these come from algebraic relation between pairs of them. So we'll give a precise definition in a restricted context soon. And secondly, to study, describe the algebraic relations so between pairs of solutions. Okay, so some examples where these So the examples where this strategy has been successful is, for example, Conover equations. So where this method was applied to Conover equations, so by lots of people here. That are in this room right now. So Naglou, Pillet, Clayton. Okay, and for Schwarzian differential equations. Okay, so let me put also lots of people here have worked on that. So Scanlon, Freytag, Naglou, and Casal. Examples. And you also have lots of examples of differential equations where we have an understanding of the algebraic relations, but it does not come from this strategy. Let me write it down here. So by non-examples, I mean examples where we have a good understanding of the algebraic relations between the solutions, but that does not come from this strategy. So basic example is linear differential equations. Okay, and here the tools are more the differential Gabor theory. Okay, and let's say Manin kernels. Okay, so where here the main tool is the group structure, which gives a lot of rigidity to the differential equation. And so the question I would like to ask is, for how many differential equations the strategy above works?
Which strategy? Which strategy you have?
So the strategy that I described first, so first to establish the disintegration property, and then to study pairs of solutions. Of course, it doesn't work for these two examples because the disintegration property is not satisfied. Okay, in terms of geometric stability theory, is to ask how many differential equations satisfy this kind of disintegrated structures. Okay, so I will try to give a partial answer to that question, where I specify a lot the differential equation that I'm studying. Okay, and I will basically study vector fields on the plane. So in these two examples, where the property was established, finally it relies on very particular properties of these equations. So here you've got a Lax pair, which is very particular situation, and here you've got all the algebra of the Trojan differential operator, which is also something very particular. So it looks like, okay, this property could be very, very related, this disintegration property, to these very specific properties. So the main setting I will be working in is the following. You fix K a field of characteristic 0. And we work in the category of vector fields, of algebraic varieties, of, let's say, smooth algebraic varieties. Over K with vector fields. Okay, so the morphisms are the morphism of algebraic varieties, which respects these vector fields.
Just in K to be constant field.
So I'm just thinking about it as a field. So if it's endowed with the trivial derivation. Okay. So how to represent the algebraic relations between solutions of the differential equation xv? Okay, they correspond. So in this setting, to algebraic closed invariant algebraic subvarieties of xv to the power n. Okay, is that fine? Do I need to define invariant? What I mean by invariant?
What do you mean by n?
By n?
Yeah.
So the number of solutions, algebraic between n solutions. Okay, and these are the closed invariant algebraic subvarieties of xv to the power n.
But this gives, those invariant algebraic, they give all the definable, they give definable relations.
Yes?
On the solution sets, but not all definable relations are algebraic. What do you mean algebraic relation anyway?
Okay, I mean
Definable.
yes, definable.
So it's more specific.
You can take that as a definition.
So algebraic relation means simply definable subsets of the solution space and its Cartesian powers.
Yes? Yes, but closed.
Pardon? What's order one?
Closed for the Colchin topology?
Pardon?
I mean, I just consider the ones that are closed for the Colchin topology. Otherwise, I don't have closed ones here.
No. These are not strongly minimal sets you're working with here.
Not for the moment.
No. So it doesn't matter. So it's okay. Just you're looking at actually what you're interested in is a definable structure on over the constant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how does this disintegration formulate in these terms? This is disintegration property. Is that xv is called disintegrated? Okay, if.
So I mean, again, you're not assuming strong minimality of anything.
No, I'm not assuming strong minimality. Okay, so basically, if you assume strong minimality, it means that all these things are generically finite to finite correspondences. Okay, but you can have invariant subvariety of higher dimensions.
So this is not algebraic in the sense of model theoretic algebraic closure?
No, this is not. No, it's not algebraic in the sense of model theory. I mean, it's really okay. We want to study the polynomial P, such that for some solutions, P of gamma 1, gamma n is equal to 0.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so the systems of such polynomials, such that these things.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So this thing is disintegrated. If any closed invariant subvariety z in xv to the power n, so let's say for n greater than 3, okay, can be written as an irreducible component of something of this form, an intersection for I not equal to j of pj minus 1 of zij, okay, where zij is in I2 of xv, and pij is a projection on the coordinates ij. Okay, and so these things I denoted in of xv.
What is I2?
This thing is in, okay? So this is I2 is just for n equals 2. Okay, so this represents, these are the algebraic relations between pairs of solutions. Okay, so these are I mean, if you don't want to speak about algebraic relation, you can just say the invariant subvariety of xv to the power 2. And it means that, okay, if you are interested in the invariant subvariety of xv to the power n, you just have to describe the one in I2 if in xv times xv, and then they are all irreducible components of something of this form. So if you know all the zij that can appear, then you can write down all the intersections, look at all the irreducible components, and you get all the algebraic relations. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, and the theorem is the following. So we'll first give the geometric version, and then I'll give a model theoretic version which is a bit stronger. So you fix Z which is greater than 3. Okay, and the set of complex planar algebraic vector fields which satisfies the disintegration property. Okay, so there's two hypotheses that I look at complex things and on the plane. Okay, as full Lebesgue measure. In the parameter space of algebraic vector fields, I should say algebraic planar vector fields, complex planar algebraic vector fields of degree D. Okay, so I should say here of degree D.
How do you define this grid? How do you define this?
So, okay, so I'll do it now. I mean, this is just the most naive definition you can take. So such a vector field function has. So what's the nice things about A2 is that the tangent space is trivialized, so you can write it f, a function f d over dx plus a function g d over dy. Okay, where f and g are polynomial in x and y, and the degree of v is the max of the degree of f and the degree of g. Okay, and here the degree is
What if there is a change of coordinates so the degrees are smaller?
okay, it can happen. So this is, I mean, indeed, this is a good question. There's another notion of degree, which is the degree of the associated foliation. For what I'm doing, it doesn't matter. What I really want is to have, is that the vector field of degree d forms an algebraic family. Okay, I could work with other families of vector field, but it's just a specific family of vector field. You can think about it as, okay, you've got the coefficient of f and g who varies, okay, and you look at the family that they define. So you can call it the degree, you can just give another name if you don't like the name degree. But indeed, if you look at, if you change the coordinates, the degree might change.
But I suppose the things where the degree might change will have fairly small Lebesgue measure, and so won't have much effect on the conclusion of your theorem.
No, that's complicated. So what happens is that for in a full Lebesgue measure set, the line at infinity is invariant. Okay, and if you look at A2, you've got the line at infinity in P2, and the line at infinity is invariant. If you look into a chart where the line at infinity is not invariant anymore, then the degree will be +1 or -1. I don't remember. Okay, but I mean it doesn't. Yeah, here it's not. The thing that matters is really that they behave in a big algebraic family.
Can you say something about the structure of this set? Is it constructible or?
Yes. So I'm going to say it now in the model theoretic version.
It's definable. The family of fg of bounded degree is definable for.
Yes, this is what I'm going to say. So what is the parameter space? So the parameter space for vector fields of degree d so is c to the power d plus 1. Okay, so you've got the Lebesgue measure here. Okay, and we measure with respect to the Lebesgue measure. Okay, it doesn't have finite measure, so to say that we have full Lebesgue measure, if you have a probability measure, this is the same thing to say that you have measure 1. Okay, but here you cannot say you have measure 1 because you've got infinite measure, so you say that the complementary has measure 0. And okay, this is basically, so this is a kind of answering your questions about definability. So how I'm going to prove this thing?
Remy, can I ask what this is for regular vector fields? What about rational? Is it specific to the polynomial case, or what if you have a rational vector field?
I mean, yes. I mean, it can be true too. That it's true for rational vector fields. I mean, it's probably true if you allot poles. Yeah, no. I mean, I'm sure you can allow pole and have the same kind of results. Okay. And the first thing is that by definability techniques, you get that if the coefficient of V and W realizes the same type, so in HCF over Q. Okay, so you look at the coefficients in this space, you look at the type that they realize, and if they realize the same type, then A to B is the theorem holds for A to B. The theorem holds. Okay, not theorem. Disintegration. A to B is disintegrated. if and only if A2W is disintegrated. Okay, so this space is at least a union of types.
By the way, does disintegrationness imply rank 1?
No.
No, it
No.
doesn't. No.
No,
It's just
I'll give something which is equivalent to rank 1. I mean, how to check Chang'e immunity, if you want. Okay, so basically I can rephrase the theorem using that. And I will do two rephrasing at the same time. And let me give the model theoretic version, let's say. Is that okay? We look at D greater than 3 and V of xy so a vector field of degree D where the list of the coefficients of f of xy and g of xy form a Q algebraically independent set. Okay, so when I say the list of the coefficients, I mean that if you have two different coefficients, I mean if I set a set of coefficients, if you have twice the same coefficient, you will not include it twice, okay, but you have to include it twice. Okay, so if you look at all the coefficients, they form a Q algebraically independent set. Okay? So then...
When you say coefficient, you include zeros.
Yes, I include zeros. I don't allow sparse, with the definition of last time, I don't allow sparse polynomial. It's really the dense case here. Okay, it's possible that it's also true in some sparse cases, but I haven't thought about it. I mean, the talk of yesterday, I thought that it might be an interesting question, but I haven't thought about it. And so the theory of xv, okay, I'll define it, of A to V, is almost strongly minimal.
What do you mean theory?
I'll define it just as a theorem, and disintegrated. I just mean the theory of the associated definable set in DCF0. Okay, so this is a bit more precise because of the conclusion. Okay, and you see that this kind of vector fields, okay, if it's true for one vector field of that type, by this kind of remark, it's true for all of them, and they form a measure one set, of a set of full measures.
You mean almost strongly minimal in the usual model theoretic sense?
Yes?
I mean, in the algebraic closure of a strongly minimal set?
Yes?
Yeah?
Yes?
Very strange. If you take two spaces, it's definitely split this way.
So, okay, so what is a theory of HV is defined as
When you look at two space over
as a theory
quality, two space.
of A to V, so usually it's represented like that, of A to V delta, which is a set of solutions of A to V, okay, in an existentially closed differential space.
It's a bit funny to talk about a theory of a definable set.
Hmm?
It's a bit strange to talk about the theory of a definable set.
So, yes,
Just a
it's
definable
just
set.
Yes, I could, but it's just that, I mean, this is, yeah. It's just that, okay, this set depends on the differentially closed field you choose, but this theory doesn't. So, no, I know it doesn't make any difference. And the notion of almost strongly minimal, I mean, in the literature, I've seen it for theories and not for definable.
It exists for definable sets too.
At the end, I work with the definable set.
Excuse me, the assumption that there's a Q algebraically independent, is that something to do with generic being?
Yes, this means that the type that they realize is a generic type of the interparameter space.
I know what.
Okay.
So let me explain what is the main point of the proof of that.
Wait, Remy, because I think you didn't define almost strong
Okay,
minimal though.
okay.
Oh, almost. Okay. Well, with my big measure, I guess.
So let me define it. So let me define it for complete series. A complete series is almost strongly minimal. So okay, it is strongly minimal if the formula x is equal to x is strongly minimal. Okay, and it is almost strongly minimal if, okay, for some saturated model M of T, okay, there exists A, okay, a parameter space A included in M, and the strongly minimal definable set D, so A definable set D in MEQ, such that M is included in ACLA of D. Okay, so any element in M are in a realization of, are algebraic over tuples of realization of D. So we don't ask that x is equal to x is strongly minimal. Okay, we ask that there is a strongly minimal somewhere that completely controls the structure.
Go back to my question. So, just to clarify, so the set of disintegrable vector fields, again, is it constructible or not?
So it's a union of types. So it's not, it's not definable, but it's okay. It's still a union of types. So it's a union of infinite definable sets.
That's I understood from what, but it's not constructible.
Correct.
No, yeah, it's not constructible.
Okay.
I'm not sure we have counterexamples. I'm not sure we have counterexamples, but it's probably not constructible.
So my question was about your theorem. So your theorem doesn't say that this is constructible.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yes, no, but we can, yes, in the case of Pain-Levé equations or things like that, we probably can see that it's not constructible. Yeah. You have
So
to,
if you choose this, you're looking at the generic vector field, okay?
yes,
So it's just one, up to isomorphic, it's just one thing.
exactly.
Okay, isn't it strongly minimal?
That's what I would like to prove, but since I didn't know how to prove strongly minimal, basically find a way to avoid proving strong minimality. And then I can explain what strong minimality, it's using the theorem, strong minimality reduced to a question which looks simpler than global strong
It has to
minimality.
be strongly minimal.
Of course, it has to be, probably completely disintegrated. But it's very hard to prove it. I don't know any techniques which are able to solve this problem. If I knew, if you can prove strong minimality, then the theorem, the theorem become very. It's a corollary. It's a corollary of proving that it's strongly minimal. Okay, but I don't know how to prove that it's strongly minimal. And somehow, if you know the theorem already, you did a big step to prove strong minimality. Because I can write down complete statements, but I just want to first.
Could you explain this definition one more time, please?
Yes. So you've got the notion of strong minimality.
Right.
Okay, and usually to say that a complete theory is strongly minimal, you say that the formula x equals x is strongly minimal. So here we don't ask that the formula x equals x is strongly minimal, but that there exists a formula which defines a strongly minimal set, such that M is included in its algebraic closure. So basically, the strongly minimal set D completely controls the structure M. M itself is not strongly minimal. For example, M could be D squared.
What is N there?
M?
Yeah, what is it?
It's the same M as
It's a model.
here.
Well, it doesn't look the same.
Okay, because
One is called M, the
yeah.
other is called N.
So So usually we think about this as a
It's simply a
structure.
handwriting issue, right?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
It's handwriting, that M and that
It's
M.
script versus
No, but it's,
prose.
I mean, it's
What?
yeah.
Model
It's just that here I think about it as a set, and here I think about it as a structure, so I take different
Ah,
notations.
okay.
But I mean,
All right,
they are the same M.
Okay, thank you, okay, all right. Okay. Underlying set.
Yes, the underlying set.
Oh, I thought it was a type, I thought it was a handwriting issue.
Remy,
Yes.
people who are not, who didn't see this notion before, is there in this exact setup, any easy way to say
Yes,
what?
there's a complete geometric way of proving it. I mean, I'll okay, maybe not the full thing, but I'll explain what is the main point and give a geometric interpretation for this notion for something which is a bit stronger. Okay, so the heart of the proof.
Just, can you wait a second? So, if it's order, so if it's almost strongly minimal and not strongly minimal, then actually it means that there's an order 1. So this is order 2. There's an order 1
Yes.
definable set.
So for example, we know
Orderize the thing,
Yeah.
and the order 1 thing,
will be omega categorical.
it cannot be. You know it's not connected to the constant. You know it's not connected to the constants,
Yes.
It's made-
right?
Basically,
So it's actually, you know, it's how do you know it's not the constants?
so that's part of
And
the theorem.
therefore, oh, I see. Okay. So from just almost strong minimal itself tells you the result. To be disintegrated comes from that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that's why I prove a bit more than the geometric statement. But somehow, if you try to prove disintegration from scratch, you need to have this almost strongly minimal.
Excuse me, one more. What is M to the E something?
M if you okay, it's M if you want. Okay, you can. So it's the imaginary element in M. This is something in Moore's theory.
Okay.
No, I mean, it means that D is a quotient. It means that D is a quotient of a definable set
Okay.
by a definable equivalence relation.
Okay, fine. Okay. Oh, that's equal. Okay. I don't know the notation. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. No, but it's just that, okay, I'll give I mean, for people not familiar with Moore's theory, I'll give a way of thinking about these things. It's, yeah. So the heart of the proof is to prove that the generic type of A to V is almost internal. So once again, I will give to a minimal type, which is disintegrated. Okay, so you don't prove that the type itself is strongly minimal or minimal. You prove that it's almost internal to a minimal type, and you prove that this minimal type has to be disintegrated. Okay, and the outline of the outline of the proof, and then I will explain only one point of this outline, is the following: is prove that P. So let's denote this thing P. Prove that P is semi-minimal. And by semi-minimal, I mean what I define there, almost internal to a minimal type. The second part is apply Vysotsky-Sokolovich classification. To get that. So let's denote to this type R. So you apply it to the minimal type R to get that R is either disintegrated or non-orthogonal to the constant. and the sub 3 to prove that P is orthogonal to the constant.
What do you apply to see that? Why do you rule out this? Why do you rule out the elliptic curve?
Because elliptic curves are orthogonal to any type of constant field.
Exactly. Sorry. You're over the constants. Yeah. Oh, I see.
Okay, so somehow, chronologically, I found the proof in this direction, but I think that the right way of presenting it is in this direction. Okay, and what I want to prove is what I want to talk about. The theorem I want to talk about today is really the thing that the type is semi-minimal. Okay, so how to prove these things, which is related to this definition, and we need a geometric interpretation. Because basically it's not, this definition is too abstract to work with it in a concrete setting, and I will get a concrete notion which implies this notion, and which is a bit stronger. And this is a notion that has been defined by Reim and Anand, which is the notion of types without proper fibrations.
By who?
By you and Reim.
Oh. I thought it sounded like two French people or something.
So let me give so right now, so I will I will mainly prove the part one. Okay, I like to explain the part one, and so let me start with the definition. So this is the definition that you define, but I take it in a restrictive context. So let X V be an algebraic variety over K with the vector field. We say that XV does not admit non-trivial. So you use the term fibration, but here I think that it's better to use the term factor, rational factors. If, okay, for any rational morphism phi from XV to YW, so towards another variety with a vector field, we have that the dimension of W is the dimension of X or the dimension of W.
It's like a Y. A Y. It's not
of Y. Of Y.
Easy. Y double.
Or it could be bigger.
Or it could be dominant. Any.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that means that if these two conditions are not satisfied, then there is no such morphism.
So this is so I'm taking this definition,
I know.
and the main thing is that this definition implies
okay.
the other one.
Okay.
LV does not admit non-trivial rational factors. Implies that the generic type of XV is semi-minimal.
But it's really funny because if you take a D and take a D squared, then D squared does admit.
Yes. So really what I need to prevent is really the S2. You know, this is your paper. No, it's the symmetric powers of XV to the of something of dimension 1 to the power n. The symmetric power of something of dimension 1. So basically to get, you will have CV to the power n here, and the factor will appear only after an algebraic extension. Okay, here I'm saying this thing doesn't have, if CV is disintegrated, this thing doesn't have.
What's SN?
It's a symmetric power.
Modulo this action of the symmetry.
I mean, it's this thing divided by sigma n. No, so this one will not be. Yes?
Like in your context, X is A2, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
I'm just giving the definition in general
I see,
because
but just for A2, can we like maybe say this simpler? Like, is it the same as having the first integral?
no.
Or is it?
Well, having the first integral is saying that the vector field is 0. Okay, so it's really having a factor.
So it's like Darboux polynomial or something, right? So it's like having a Darboux polynomial or like having invariant. But so okay, my question is, in your case of A2, can I say this easier? Like, can I say what are options for Y?
Yes, so y has to be, you have to prevent things of dimension 1.
Right.
Okay, you have to prevent all y of dimension 1. Okay, but basically you have to prevent, for example, that xv could be a product. Okay, if you look at something as a product, you've got two maps, one to C1 V1 and one to C2 V2. Okay, so it's a bit more general than proving that the thing is not a product.
But also you're working only over
Okay,
constants.
that's the strength of this strategy is that you don't need to work over differential fields, and that this is a very concrete definition.
Right.
Somehow I can use this definition very concretely.
So in fact there could be rational factors over a larger field.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
In fact there will be probably.
Yes.
Unless
If it's
I mean, unless it's minimal. I mean, and it's probably strongly minimal.
So the definition looks like it says something is strongly minimal. Is that right?
I mean, not exactly. It tells you semi-minimal. It doesn't tell you strongly, but it's indeed the right. I mean, if you think about for groups, the right notion of notion of minimality is a group to be simple, and this is really the generalization of the notion of a group to be simple. Okay, doesn't have any quotient, doesn't have non-trivial quotients, but it's not. I mean, strongly minimal is stronger than this property. It's a bit stronger than this property. Not that much, I mean, but still I cannot prove it. So it's not. I mean, it's still quite stronger. Yeah. Okay, so we will use that. Okay, so. Here. So to get semi-minimality, I will check that this property is fulfilled. And somehow I will, so to study rational factors, I will study them in a neighborhood of the singularity of the vector field V. Okay, so let me give you a definition. So you always with the same setting. So a singularity P of V is a point P. So okay, I restrict to the case of. Oh, I don't need to restrict to the case of completely obvious. That such that V vanishes at P. That V of P is equal to 0. Okay, so if P is a singularity, of V, so then, so the derivation delta V, okay, that induced by V, and I look at it in the local ring of P. Okay, and it satisfies delta V of the ideal of NP is in MP. Okay, this is exactly saying that P is a singularity.
What is MP?
The maximal ideal of so maximal ideal of this local ring. So it induces a map from L, from MP to MP squared. So since the maximal ideal is preserved, this second power is also preserved. You've got this map, and okay, these are the same, the two on the same side. Usually you have to bevet the map, but you can take the dual, okay, as a K vector. So this is a K of P vector space. And this is isomorphic to the tangent space of X at P. So what I'm saying is that from this vector field, I get a linear map from the tangent space at X of P to the tangent space of X at P. Okay? And this linear map is called the linear part of V at P. Okay, the definition looks complicated, but it's not. Okay, if you take the vector field, which would be, I don't know, a dx plus b xy plus y squared d over dx plus cy plus dx plus bx to the power n d over dy, and just for something at random. So here 0 is the singularity. Okay, and the linear part is L. I mean, is the map A 0 C D. Okay, you just get rid of the terms which are not linear. You get a linear thing, a linear map. Okay. So I mean, it's easy to compute. Just the definition is always a bit messy. And so the theorem of to get semi-minimality, we'll deal with these cases. And so let XV be an algebraic variety with a vector field. Over C. So here I really need to work over C and of dimension B. Okay, so it's a bit more general than planar vector fields, but not that much. So assume that V admits a singularity P so just two things happen. So the first thing, okay, I give them name, hyperbolicity and non-resonance. So it's the two eigenvalues of the linear part. The two eigenvalues
It's just the model structure with this one. So the things we know.
of the linear part. Satisfy that lambda over mu is not a negative real number, and lambda over mu is not in Q. So this is a non-resonant part, and this is the hyperbolicity part. Okay, and I will use that to use Poincaré linearization theorem, which tells you that in analytic coordinates, if these two conditions are satisfied, the vector field can be reduced to its linear part. And the second condition is no algebraic separatrix. Which means that the vector field V does not admit any complex algebraic invariant curve through the point P. P is not contained in a complex invariant curve, okay? And the singularity looks like that. So then,
Say what's it called? No algebraic?
separatrix.
Yeah.
So in the terminology of analytic things, the separatrix is an analytic curve through your singularity. Okay, and I'm just saying that so that you always have with this condition two analytic curves for your singular point. Okay, and the condition is that these two analytic curves are not algebraic, basically.
It says lambda over mu is not in R. And then
Minus.
Oh, okay.
So you could somehow phrase it a bit more generally, saying lambda over mu is not in R. I mean, but somehow in people working in these things, they really take these two assumptions separately because this one ensures that you have linearization at the formal level, and this one ensures that the linearization that you get at the formal level is convergent.
So the first condition is hyperbolisticity and the second one.
Yes.
What's R minus?
Yes.
What's up?
Negative.
The negative real number.
Exponential decay.
Okay, then XV doesn't admit any rational factor of dimension 1. Okay, in particular, it is semi-union. In particular, it's semi-union. So, but you see that this, okay, it's not clear that this is satisfied by all polynomial things with algebraically independent coefficients. But it's clear that it's satisfied by at least one. This is not definable. I mean, saying that something is not in R will not be definable. So some vector field with algebraically independent coefficients will satisfy this, and some others will not. But since it does not depend on the one you choose, you can always ensure this condition on one. And then this second condition, for the generic one, is ensured by work of Ilyashenko. You also have Jorge Vittorio Pereira and Coutinho that study this kind of properties and study that, okay, for the generic case, you know that this, you don't have any complex invariant curve. Okay, so how much time do I have left? 5 minutes?
4 questions.
Okay, let me just give you the part of the proof which is easy in 2 minutes. The easy part. So, okay, assume you've got a map from XV to C W for some curve C. Okay, and there's a part which is very easy, is if phi is defined at P. If phi is defined at P, then phi of P has to be a singularity of W.
Oh, sorry, with phi is what kind of map? What is phi? A polynomial map or what?
It's a rational map.
Rational map.
So it's a rational factor, so it's a rational map. So if it's defined at P, phi of P has to be a singularity. Okay, so phi minus 1 of phi of P is an algebraic curve.
Singularity of CW.
Yes. Yeah, of W. Yeah. So the fiber is an algebraic curve through P. Okay, so the whole point is to understand the cases where phi is not defined at P.
Is it algebraic? Is what? An algebraic.
An invariant algebraic curve. And so the whole point is to understand the case where phi is not defined at P, and this is where I use these properties to study these things. Okay, and I will stop now.
How much are your results specific to planar case? So what's the problem with 3D?
I mean, the thing is that, okay, I mean, it has less than a month, I think, so I haven't thought about all the cases, But I think that maybe in dimension greater, the thing is that, okay, it might generalize that it has no factors of dimension 1. But you still have to control factors of codimension 1. But you still have to understand factors of dimension 2. I mean, it's just that in dimension 2, you just need to understand things of dimension 1. If you go to dimension 3, then you need to understand things of dimension 2 and of dimension 1.
Okay.
How much does all this depend on the sort of starting setup being things with constant coefficients?
With constant coefficient, I use this. So the first thing is that in Reshevsky-Sokolovich theorem, I mean, it's very important to ask for constant coefficients. For the method, I mean, I really try to focus on constant coefficients. I mean, the theory of the thing is that I really use analytic theory here. I mean, okay, it's not clear to me if it's. I think that the constant case is clearly more simple.
But at some point, you're using a strongly minimal set of order 2 defined over the constant is disintegrated.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the semi-minimal one.
No, even order 1 too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if orthogonal to.
You said you had a nice way to describe what it would take to prove strong minimality.
Yes, I mean to prove that. So basically, you need to prove that in XV type. So you've got your vector field V. Strong minimality here reduces to prove that. So you look at A to V times A to V. Okay, and you look at all invariants of variety here, and it means that there is no one of codimension 1. No invariance of variety of codimension 1. Over K. And you use this integration, because then if you know that for these two things, then you know it for all n. Okay, this really, I mean, this, yeah. And someone...
That project dominantly or something?
Yeah, okay, that project, but I mean, if it's of codimension 1, could it not project dominantly? Yeah. Since the thing has no invariant curve, since this thing has no invariant curve, it cannot not project dominantly. Okay. If you had an invariant curve, then it could not project dominantly. Yeah.
What about trying to do directly that, I mean, that there's no invariance to be strong minimality, like it's done by the people in the Pandemic people? They just show that over larger fields, there's no.
Yes, I mean I don't know any. I mean, just the simple problem, I don't know how to study.
No, I'm talking about proving by showing that there's no proper invariant subvariety over a larger field directly.
Yes,
did you try and do this?
Here it's really proving that there is no invariance of varieties in the field of functions of A to V.
This is a special case.
Special case, even a special case. Even a special, I see, even that special case.
I mean,
I see.
But it's possible that if you know how to do this special case, you know how to do all the cases directly. But I mean, I tried, and I don't know.
So you probably have to start with a small degree or something like that.
Yes.
Oh yes. What about small degree things? Smaller degree. Well, you fix a degree, small degree.
Of vector fields?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's hard. I mean, even saying that, questions about Hilbert problem about vector fields of degree 2, planar vector fields of degree 2 are unknown. If there's a finite number of analytic cycles. So I mean, it's not. Even vector fields of degree 2 are complicated.
Questions? So thanks, speaker again.